Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order. Today is August 14th, 2023, and this is our regular Board of Commissioners monthly meeting, and so we welcome all of you here tonight, and we have a pretty exciting agenda ahead. So getting started with our pledge and our prayer, we're going to have Commissioner Green to lead us off with Commissioner Walker to lead us off with a prayer, and Commissioner Green will do the pledge.
Everyone, bow our heads, please. Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you, dear Lord, for another day you've given us on this earth. Dear Lord, we thank you for the privilege to be here tonight. And dear Lord, we just pray that as we go over our agenda, that you would lead, guide, and direct us, that we would make the right decisions that would bring honor and glory to your name, that would help the people that live in this county. Dear Lord, we thank you for McDowell County. What a blessing it is to live here, and we have friends here, family, and dear God, just to help one another is a happy and blessed thing to do. And I just pray, dear Lord, that you just bless our county, bless our leadership, bless our partners we get to work with, and dear Lord, just thank you for your Son Jesus, who died on that cross for our sins and rose 3 days later. We love you tonight. In your name we pray, amen.
Attention, salute, pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do I hear a motion we approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Do I hear a motion we approve the agenda for tonight?
Mr. Chairman, are there any additions to the agenda? I think staff had one.
Probably need a personnel closed session at the end.
Okay.
Make a motion we approve the agenda with the addition of the closed session for personnel matters.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. This will be at just after citizen comment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor say aye. Aye. All right. First on appointments tonight, item A, we've got the introduction of our new superintendent. So after going through an intensive search, I think McDowell County has found a new superintendent to lead the system. So we're going to ask the chairman of the school board, Mr. Terry English, to come up and introduce him, and then we'll have Mr. Tracy Gritt to say a few words if you will.
Well, thank you, gentlemen. And as chair of the school board, I can tell you it was pretty exhausting. I just so thankful that we were able to find someone who was so much like people in our community. I don't think you'll find a more down-to-earth, approachable, and yet very committed and skilled person to lead our school system. He's got a wide range of experience, and although he came to us from Montgomery County, which is quite a ways east of here, he is not unfamiliar to western North Carolina. And I'll hush my trap, and I would like to introduce you and the public to our new superintendent, Dr. Tracy Gritt.
Thank you, Chairman Brown, Manager Wooten. Appreciate everybody here tonight for having me out to do this introduction tonight. I'm glad to be here. Like Mr. English said, it was exhausting on his side. Now on my side, it was pretty exhausting too. You know, going through that process and really just making sure that you found the right spot. It's just as much about a fit as it is anything. And I'll be honest with you, I feel right at home here, and I'm glad to be part of the community. It was a challenge to find a house, but we jumped right on the first couple that we could find and finally got situated in there. So about 3 miles away from the office, so that's been a blessing. Again, just a blessed to be here. A little bit about me: I grew up in Wilkes County, just down the road. It's about an hour and 15 minutes to my mom's house. So it really does feel like I'm coming home. I spent about 17 years up in Avery County. That's really the only system I had been in before my stepfather had a little accident, and I actually stepped away from education for a little while to help with the family business for about 16 months. And probably one of the most challenging things I ever did, but at the same time, it was probably one of the most rewarding things that I ever did to be able to help my family.
Yes.
And then when I started looking for jobs, I looked everywhere, trying to find something. And I ended up down in McDowell County, or Montgomery County, excuse me. You see how I mix those up all the time. Montgomery County, in the middle of the state, like Mr. English said, and I worked for Dr. Dale Ellis down there, and he'd been a superintendent for about 13 years. And he really helped me to learn the ropes, as you will, so I feel real fortunate to have worked from him. He was a Western North Carolina fellow as well, and someone that I had had some experience with over the years, so I was glad to work with him. Also had the pleasure of working with Mark Garrett when I was up in Avery County, so I know Mark's familiar with you guys, and we're going to have some similarities. We're going to do some things a little different, but we're going to do some things that are going to be similar as well. So honored to be here. I'm excited about it. It's a big position, and I appreciate so far the partnerships that I've seen in McDowell County. I'm very impressed with it. The Sheriff's Department, Marion Police Department, the county commissioners. I mean, just folks have been overwhelmingly supportive of me in this position and to our school system, and that's pretty obvious when you come in here. And that's something that you just don't find everywhere. So I'm happy to say that exists here, and I'm just tickled to death to be working in it. And it's also great that we've got some students here. I don't know, somebody may have done that on purpose to line things up tonight. Looks pretty intentional, so, but I appreciate that. Because, you know, it's always one of those things we love getting to watch our students get some accolades, and they certainly deserve it for the work that they did, SkillsUSA down there in Atlanta. But folks, I appreciate it. We want to watch these kids get some recognition, and maybe we can get down for supper before our board meeting tonight. But I thank you.
Well, thank you, Dr. Britt. We're happy to have you, and we trust our school board, and we feel like you're going to be a great fit for this county. So we welcome you, and hope you enjoy your stay here.
Thank you so much.
Next is item B, which is recognition of SkillsUSA winners, and we've got Mr. Barry McPeters, if he will, come up and do the introduction to these great champions of our county.
Well, as short as Dr. Gribb was referring to my outburst on my phone, I had my volume down. I could not load a video, about 3 seconds of some excitement at National Skills Competition, and I was trying to get it to play to let you see the excitement of a couple of McDowell County girls. But just want to say thank you for the opportunity to be able to be here this evening to present to you, and it touches me to be able, I thank God that He gives me the opportunity to be able to work with kids at the high school. I wasn't sure, 10 years ago, most of y'all know me, I spent my life in emergency services, and doors opened up at McDowell High to start an EMT program, and when I got there, I wasn't sure. But there's no doubt in my mind that God put me there in that place because those kids make a difference in my life. I've always said I want to make a difference in theirs, but it's them making a difference in my life. And I appreciate the opportunity to recognize 2 outstanding students that's here and a couple others. So real quick, I'll just run through some PowerPoints, and I'll try to pull that one back up because that's the one I wanted you to see. McDowell High School competes. This is our 7th year competing in SkillsUSA at the state level. It's our 3rd year going to nationals. So there's some significance to numbers. I told you 3 is the Trinity and 7 is completion. And what we completed this year has just been phenomenal. And I'll introduce, or like to recognize some people that's here tonight. But before I do that, I just want to run through some couple little pictures that we have we put together. So state was in April for 3 days. We won 1st, 2nd, and 3rd place there. And school board recognized those students. And our 1st place winners moved on to compete in nationals in Atlanta, Georgia, June the 19th through the 24th. Stayed a full week and competed against other teams throughout the nation. First day, kind of a load up day. You can see the girls pack a lot of stuff to take. I think I took about a 50-pound bag and several clothes. And of course, we always got to get that going, leaving picture. Of course, when we get there, they have meetings straight off. And of course, North Carolina If you see the picture on the left, they provided pirate hats, pins, trading pins, to get a little bit of camaraderie between the different states that are represented at Atlanta. And then, of course, you know, a little fun time, heading to competition. Competition day, they sit for a 75-question written exam before they go into their practicals. Of course, there's an inspection of all the junk bags that had to be sealed. They were not allowed, once they presented them to the executive committee, the ones that was actually scoring the competition, they were not allowed to touch the bags after that, and they were deducted points, of course. And we had a little bit of live action going on in the hotel, actual call. So anytime we get a picture of an ambulance, we try to do that. This is actually their trauma scenario. It was a gunshot wound. They scored 500 out of 500 on this scenario, so that says a lot for the tension that's there, because it's very nerve-wracking a lot of times when you go out and you really don't know what you have. So they went through approximately about 6 stations. Of course, then awards night, North Carolina was recognized in the middle. I don't know which one's in the middle there, and that allowed those 2 students to get up on stage in front of everybody. Of course, these are the first place, second place, and third place winners. We'll talk about that. Of course, I've got that first one. When they came around the corner, they were pumping their fists and saying, I couldn't get the video to load up, and that's my fault. And so very excited to be able, you can see the excitement on their face. It's kind of funny, and you'll hear it here in just a minute when I get to the end. And of course, you know, awards, they were recognized on stage in front of about 16,000, 18,000 people there in the arena, plus anybody that was on live. And then, of course, our packing, get ready to come home. And this is, I'm going to try to play this real quick. This was the night that they were recognized. Let's see if I can get this to play.
Oh my God, we freaking played! Oh my God!
So, a little bit to embarrass them a little bit, they, you know, you take a little girl from Old Fort and a little girl from down around Glenwood, you know, it's pretty exciting. But first off, I want to say thank you to each one of you for having us here tonight. Our CTE director and our principal, I'm not sure if they will be here, they said they were trying to, Miss Bennett said that she was going to be out of town. But we thank them for their support of our program. To McDowell Tech, these students are actually McDowell Tech students plus high school students, so they're earning dual credit. And I think Dr. Merrick's here, Stacy Butt's here, and you know, if they want to say anything later, I'll leave that up to them. But we thank you for their support. McDowell, North Carolina OEMS, Tanya Poole is going to try to be here to recognize them because that's our lead agency. North Carolina Department of Community College, Tanya Clark is here to represent the Department of Community Colleges. She travels throughout the whole state, talks about our programs sometimes. North Carolina SkillsUSA, Paul Hydepreen was unable to be here, and he wanted to send his congratulations to the girls and wanted to say thank you for recognizing them tonight. A big thank you to McDowell County EMS, Director William Keller and his employees that's here tonight. If he wants to recognize them, I think they'll have some stuff to say here a little bit later. But they're a big part of our program, always have been since day one, 10 years ago. Also, I want to thank the sponsors, our McDowell High CTE, the Board of Education, for paying for our students' rooms and being able to cover that. We also had sponsor McDowell Tech financially help the students be able to go because they gave up a week's worth of work and salary. McDowell County Fire and Rescue Association and Smoky Q Barbecue is some of our sponsors. Also, I just want to thank the parents and family for allowing us to entrust their children, their grandkids, in our care for a week in Atlanta. And so with that, I have left a little bit of information, it's SkillsUSA information with each one of you at your desk. I will not take time to read that. And also, the big thing I want to hit on is the SkillsUSA National Conference press release. On June the 26th, 2023, team of EMT class captain Peyton Teague and EMT student M. O'Neill of McDowell High School placed second in the SkillsUSA National Championship Emergency Medical Technician competition. The SkillsUSA National Championships took place April the 19th through 2023 at the GWCC, or the Georgia World Congress Center in Atlanta, Georgia. conference is the largest showcase of career and technical education in the United States. During the competition, Captain Teague and EMT O'Neill worked against the clock and other teams, providing their expertise in their chosen EMT competition. All contests are run with the help of LAPSON, which is Law and Public Safety Education Network, trade associations and technical experts, and test their competency that are set by the industry, with over 200 industry partners helping support the competitive events. And the top state winners received gold, silver, and bronze medals, and those gold was able to move on to nationals, where you see where we was able to go back in June. SkillsUSA was formerly known as Vocational Industries Clubs of America, or VICA, however you want to pronounce that, and is a national partnership of students, teachers, and industry working together to ensure America has a skilled workforce by providing students with opportunities to gain personal skills, workplace skills, technical skills, grounded in academics. So SkillsUSA chapters help students who are preparing for careers in technical, skilled, and service occupations excel. Skills has more than 350,000 students as instructors as members at the national level. And I also provided a little thing about the state competition. And you see a thing about the national competitions. I laid out the days, what they all entailed, and I won't take the time to read that. So this is my driving point here. It says your team, which I have two here tonight that placed 5th last year at nationals.
Now, you've had them to go how many years?
This is the third year we've been to nationals.
Yeah, that's great.
First year was just a kind of a recognition type thing. Last year we did not know that it was going to be kind of like competition, and they would be awarded, but they placed 5th in the nation. And I thought, man, I don't know if we can do any better than that. You know, it's pretty good because you're against stiff competition. And then, but your team competed at the competition and completed with a total score of 978 points out of 1,000. That's 22 points out of being perfect. Okay? It equaled to 97.78% score. The first place team had a total of 98.1, which, if I do my math correctly, means that we placed second by a total of 0.32% of a point from winning first place. And to me, that's first place. That's a quarter of a point. Okay? There's only 4 competitions, EMT being one, that SkillsUSA finished in the top 2%. Well, an awesome night for North Carolina. Our competitors brought home 76 medallions, 22 gold, 35 silver, and 19 bronze. It's the highest state medal count in the nation. Wow. So we're very proud of North Carolina. We're also proud of and very thankful for our North Carolina delegation, and especially proud for our 2 students. This time I'd like to recognize our 2 students won 2nd place at nationals, and to me, they're first place winners. Is Captain Peyton Teague. And
if you would come up, please.
They said they had something to speak or something, I think.
We
30 minutes each, Mr. Chairman. I vote with them 30 minutes each to speak.
We have a couple exam questions we wanted to ask you guys, see if you were up on your. No, we can't. Okay, we've got some plaques that we want to present to you girls. If you will.
This first award goes to Peyton Teague, McDowell High School, for outstanding achievement in State SkillsUSA competition, rising to participation in the National SkillsUSA Championships.
And also a plaque for SkillsUSA presented to Captain Peyton Teague, National Skills EMT 2nd place, 2023.
This goes to Emma O'Neill, and this is a national competitor. McDowell High School, Marion, North Carolina, emergency medical technician for outstanding achievement in the SkillsUSA competition, rising to participation in the National SkillsUSA Championships. This is amazing.
And then we have also to present you tonight the National Skills EMT second place Skills USA competition. So there you go. And we appreciate your hard work. And ladies, y'all have a job anytime when y'all get ready. Right there. See that man right there? Okay?
Let's give him a hand. Barry, if you will, come up and bring those that you identified a while ago with you, and we'll let y'all stand behind them right here, and the commission board will go back upside off. And we'll stand. We've got before we do the pictures. More prizes for you guys that they call those jumper bags.
Fingers around stuff.
Which one? I think we're
One, two, three. 1, 2, 3.
Mr. Sheriff, I can say one thing. And it's already been mentioned, but the partnership between the school system and the community college that enables Barry McPeters to go in there and teach and have the students earn dual credits is amazing. And as commissioners, I just want to say, Mr. Chairman and board, I appreciate the fact that we get to partner and help facilitate, and you see the results of everybody working together. Tremendous job, girls, and staff too.
Would it be okay for Mr. Keller to talk a little bit more about this please, item?
Come on up, Mr. Keller. I'm sorry we didn't.
Appreciate the opportunity to say just a few words. Mm-hmm. And what Peyton and Emma have done is absolutely amazing. Mm-hmm. I mean, you're talking students from McDowell County, second in the nation, but as Chief McPeters said, they're truly first. And I want folks to understand that may watch this video later or in the audience, this isn't about just general first aid of bandaging and just basic stuff. This is testing these students' skill set to make critical decisions that affect someone's life. Intense patient assessments, treatment regimens. They're going through skills training and testing scenarios just like we would put our paramedics through, but at the EMT basic level. What they've done and what this program has done is amazing. But the partnerships, and we say this all the time, partnerships matter. And this thing has come full circle. And we invited some of our current employees who have been through the academy, both at 911, or our employees both at 911 and EMS who have been through the academy, to show you how this pipeline has really just started to grow and produce employees. So I'd like to take just a second to recognize the employees that we have and also the preceptors that we've had. So I'm going to start at EMS. In 2018, Desiree McLaughlin, if you'll stand, she is currently our senior medic on A shift, but is in charge and oversees the interns coming from the high school academy. And she's been responsible for conducting their training. We have them field trained by the time they graduate high school and are ready for full-time employment. We just had hired Autumn Sloan that graduated in 2023. Autumn showed up at my office in the 8th grade to do job shadowing with me. And I told the staff when she left, she'll be back as a full-time employee. And she was hired this year. She graduated high school, has totally been trained through our field training program, and begins paramedic school in August. And then Brady Blanton. Both Brady and Autumn have worked at the 911 center and continue to work there as well while also working at EMS. And then Cheyenne Kelly is a part-time employee at EMS and also at 911. and has come through the program at McDowell High School. Got our 911 manager, Amberly Buff, and Karen Stepp, the lieutenant there, who help oversee the field training at the 911 center. And of course, our deputy director at EMS. Andrea Wood, one of our paramedics, has been instrumental in assisting field training. And then Peyton is one of our interns who has been field training as well and has applied for part-time employment. And she just started. And Adrian wrote down, Autumn and Cheyenne were the first interns to work part-time while still in high school.
Wow.
But this it takes the entire team, from the high school to the community college to all of our other partners, and then all of our interns at EMS and 911 to close the loop. But hopefully this is the future to address the workforce shortage in emergency services that is currently plaguing not only the state but the nation. So
Let's give them all a hand.
thanks for letting us.
Thank you. And this just, things like this just confirm what we as commissioners say all the time, that we have the best emergency services in the nation. And this confirms it. And thank you guys. Thank all of you for what you do for this county. Anyone like to say anything?
I'll just say this, if you have to have a medical emergency anywhere in the state of North Carolina, here's a good place to have one, because you got the best people coming and responding to take care of you, to have the best patient outcome possible. So I just, Mr. Chairman, I say hats off. That's true. Just impressive as a commissioner to sit here and watch the presentations tonight and to see, I was looking at that as they were recognized, the different staff members. The age, I want you to focus on the age of these young people. People say in McDowell County, we have no jobs. Our kids go to school and they leave and don't come back. Look right here. I mean, this is our future. Forget the future. They're our present day, and they're doing tremendous, Mr. Chairman. I've been commissioner 22 years. I'm so impressed with the personnel that is being employed by this group over here.
And our
You
leadership.
do a great job too there, young lady.
And our leadership.
Yes, sir.
That comes from the EMS. Thank you very much. Okay, moving along then to item C, we're going to give Mr. William Keller the floor again.
Thank you again. At a prior meeting, the board asked Deputy Director Presley and myself, along with staff, to take a look at existing contracts for emergency services. A number of these contracts were due to be updated. Some were written specifically, the one with McDowell Rescue was from the 90s and definitely needed to be updated. We went through and created draft contracts that you have a copy of. The highlighted changes, or the changes have been highlighted so you can see those there. There were minor changes on the fire contract, more on the rescue, as we added additional languages. The initial contract from the 90s was, it needed some additional clarification of roles, responsibilities, so forth. So what you have is essentially the first look at the draft document. We have been in touch with the Fire Commission Chairman as well as the Chief of the Rescue Squad. Our intent is to, after you take a look at this contract, provide feedback, is discuss this with additional chiefs and the Fire Commission once you have a chance to review and offer any suggestions, so forth.
So you don't need action on this tonight necessarily?
We would wait.
We would wait 30 days or something?
Gotcha.
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you for that presentation.
All right, thank you.
Again, we appreciate all that you do for this county and all that our Fire Commission does for the county. But we will be looking at that. Thank you very much. Next, under item D, is the tax settlement and order of collection. We have our lovely Miss Linda Onufrey here tonight to give us a report on that. I hope she's here. There she is.
I didn't hear my name.
Yeah.
Can I close that? Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, I was early, but then now I'm late. So I'm here tonight to submit my the tax year settlement for tax year 22-23, which was in your packets, and also the single bound copy of the 22 unpaid real and personal property taxes, which the balance at the end of the year was $92,065.98. Yeah. So this year we finished the 22 tax year of collection of real property and personal property at a 99.64 collection rate. That's the best yet.
Where does that rank in the state out of 100 counties?
Well, I would think we're in top 10, but I can't find that out yet. I've been trying. So it's got to be up there. We're definitely closer to 12 this year. So, but I am trying to get that report. And the collections for the delinquents was $139,329.83, which was over the budgeted amount by the finance officer of $39,329.83. So we also balanced over from last year also. So the, like I said, the ending balance that was uncollected was $92,065.98.
Out of total levy, of how much? Just remind us again.
I'm sorry.
What's the total levy amount?
The levy amount was, I should know that like the top of my head, $25,876,669.
It's pretty good. None of us like to pay taxes. Say it right now. That's your job to collect taxes. But taxes take care of these guys over here. They provide safety for our people. This crowd over here coming along that was recognized tonight, employees of McDowell County out there responding to medical emergencies. Taxes are just what it is. It's just something that we have to collect, but it goes to a good purpose.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the tax settlement and the order of collection.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Mrs.
Thank you.
Smith.
Have a good evening.
You too. Next on the board appointments is the item E, which is the Spectrum Broadband update, and we have Michael Tank here tonight to give us update on that. So, sir, the floor is yours when it's available.
Thank you, gentlemen. It's a pleasure to be here. Been about a year, maybe a little longer since I was last here when we were back at the college. So, love your place here. It's wonderful. What I want to do this evening is give you a little update about the broadband settlement, or the broadband, where we are with the great grant and other services. Okay, here's warming up. Okay. So first I want to chat a little bit about the history of the broadband grants we've gone through, talk about where we are today, the construction process, where we are with the process, the upcoming opportunities we have, and then the services we offer. So first of all, let me talk a little bit about RDOF. We have talked about this in the past. This is the Rural Digital Opportunity Fund. This was done back in 2020 through the FCC, where Charter went and made auctions. It was a reverse auction where we bid on unserved census block groups. So we won over 2,600 locations in McDowell County. The federal government has given us over $3 million to offset that. And we have a 6-year window to build those out. Then
How far into the window are you right now?
Pardon me?
From the time you were awarded the money, how far into the window are you now?
We'll get to that.
Okay.
I think you'll be pleasantly pleased with what I have to say with that. So I guess I'm kind of setting the stage so you see what.
Keep trucking. We'll get to that then.
The next, we had the NTIA opportunity. So we applied for a grant, we worked with the county on do that, but unfortunately, we were unsuccessful in that bid. Next came the GREAT grant, or Growing Rural Economies Through Access to Technology. This was in August of 2022, and so we worked with the county and made application, and the county partnered with us to provide a $100,000 grant. The state came up with $4 million, and Charter's putting in $3.3 million. So almost $7.5 million project that the county leveraged $100,000 towards. So we were fortunate enough to win that. We won over 1,300 locations. That's going to be over 160 miles. I really want to say thank you to the county for partnering with us, because that made a big deal. There was a scoring mechanism based upon that, and it had to do with, we got a lot of points for the partnership. So what that did, it helped us to move to be one of the early award winners so that we could get the ball rolling early on. So thank you very much. That made a world of difference. So here's where we are with the grants we've won today. We have over 4,000 locations, and a location is a house, it could be a business, it could be an anchor institution, school, church, something like that. We're going to be building almost 460 miles of cable system, and when I'm talking about that, it's going to be fiber to the home is all the new stuff we're doing. The existing stuff is fiber, coax, hybrid. It's a good system, it's all that, but what we're doing new is all going to be fiber to the home. So from that, we have over a $10.5 million investment coming through here. And I want to point out that under the RDOF, the $3 million there, that's the money we're getting from federal. Charter hasn't released yet how much money we're actually putting into it. But if you look at the percentage of the entire project under GREAT, I think conservatively you can double that of what Charter's putting in, if not more. So while I don't have the number, I think we're looking at pushing a $15 million investment for the residents here in Broadband. So here's where we're doing it. It's kind of difficult to see in this map, but the green area are the RDOF locations, and when we talked about the RDOF, we talked about unserved census blocks. Any home that is in that census block will be served. So it's when you map out a location. Under GREAT grant, it was by locations. So that's where the red dots. It's difficult to see there. I apologize for that. But
one question.
Sure.
Does it matter how far off the main road they are?
Yes. If they're off the main road by a mile, that probably won't be counted. But we generally can go about 2,000 feet. Every circumstance is going to be a little different. If there's a pole line, then maybe go a little farther. If we got to be burying it and digging it, that could be a whole nother story. So, but generally anything within that 1,500 to 2,000 foot should be accessible. That's a rule of thumb. You know, every circumstance it could be a little different. So when we do our construction process, what we did is we did initial desktop evaluation when we went and made the grant application. Now that the grant has been awarded, we have to do the field walkout. Next becomes the field design and engineering, where you have to do figure out where the lines are going to run, where the amplifiers are going, and so on. Then we have to do the permitting and applications for the pole attachments and for the right-of-ways on the highways for NCDOT. We have make-ready on the poles. Now, when I say make-ready, do you guys understand what I mean by that? Because this is a significant piece of the construction process. We try to hang as much as we can on power poles. To be on a power pole, we have to follow NESC, National Electrical Safety Codes. And what that means is we have to have a certain amount of ground clearance above the road, up height, 18 foot or so. Then above that, we have to have spacing between us and any other telecommunications provider, a phone company or whoever. And then above that, there has to be, I think it's 18 inches separation from the phone. From the power to make sure we're in safety. If there's not enough space on that pole, we have to when we make the permit to the power company, they have to go out and rearrange the stuff on the pole or potentially set a new pole to replace that to get space so that we have, so that we can build the service. So that is a big piece of this project. It's expensive to do that. I can imagine going out and setting new poles and rearranging. Fortunately, the state has come in with a program to help offset some of that cost. Not all of it, but some of it, to make it a little more acceptable, and also to expand the rapid expansion of broadband throughout the rural areas. So make ready is a very big deal in the construction. Then we start the physical construction, whether it's aerial or underground. And then we got to put in the equipment, the splicing of the electronics, adding the power supplies and so on. Then we activate the network to make sure it's running. Then we can do the customer installation. Now we're coming to your question. Where do we stand on all this? Well, right now, the field walkout is complete. We've completed all the field workout. We're approximately 25% done with the field engineering and design. We have begun the permit application. About 5% have been submitted, but we're ongoing. It's where we're moving through now. The make ready has not yet started. So we've got the applications into the power company. They will then evaluate what needs to be done, tell us how much it's going to be. They send us a bill, we write them a check, then they go out and start doing it. Then we can do our physical construction. We anticipate starting physical construction here in McDowell County in November, December of this year. Then, when will we be activating the services? Well, as we go, it's going to be a progressive. So if we get this little bit here, we're not waiting for the whole thing to get done. We're going to activate it as we go. And we anticipate in the Great Grant area, which was the 2-year window under Great Grant, to have that done by the first quarter of 2025. And then under the RDOF area, we anticipate completing the remainder in 2025. So hopefully, if everything goes according to schedule, we should have all the 4,000 plus homes that we are looking at doing completed by the end of 2025. Now again, that's all subject to change upon things that are beyond our control. That can be the make ready. There could be right-of-way issues. There could be equipment shortages. There could be labor issues. There could be, God forbid, another pandemic coming in. Things that we just can't see. But if everything goes according to schedule, that's where we're at. Now, if people want to find out where they stand on the process, we have set up this website, www.spectrumruralexpansion.com. They can go in and put in their address, and then they can see exactly where they are and sign up for emails as we make progress in our work. So once we get that done, then I'm looking to the future, because that's not going to be 100% of all the homes in McDowell County. We'd like to do as much as we can. So the next on the horizon is through the state of North Carolina, completing access to broadband, or CAB. You'll probably hear the acronym CAB. The state has $150 million set aside for that. It's going to require the use of ARPA funds matching from the county. The state will match, and then we will match as well. So it's going to be a three-legged stool on that to go forward. We anticipate the rules to be coming out really any time, late summer, the early fall, and then we can figure out how to do it. We'll work with your county manager, Mr. Wooten, to figure out how we can work with the county on that. Then beyond that, the state has what they call the stopgap solution. They have another $990 million set aside for that. What that is, the way the state is looking at this is, from what I understand, they had the great grant set up of $390 million or $350 million to use. Now they're trying to deplete that and use those funds. Next will come the CAB of the next $150 million. Once that is done, then they'll move into the stopgap, which is trying to fill in the holes that weren't taken care of in the first two programs. So that's kind of where we are with the state. Exactly when those funds are going to become available, it's still on the horizon. It's been appropriated by the legislature, but we don't know what the time frame of the use of those funds are at this point in time. And then beyond that, there is the BEAD, or Broadband Equity and deployment from the federal government. This again is going through NTIA. This is part of the National Infrastructure and Jobs Act that you've probably been hearing a lot about. It was a $42.5 billion fund, of which North Carolina got 1.5 billion funds. So there's going to be a lot of money, and it's going to go through the NCDOT program. Very similar to GREAT is what we're anticipating. There are a lot of steps that have to go through, and NCDOT is going through those steps now. We anticipate that we're going to be entering into the application phase of this probably in the fall of 2024, so a little more than a year from now. So it's on the horizon, but it's not right around the corner. And with this, especially this one, since it is a federal program, there's going to be more and more restrictions and red tape attached to this and strings attached to these grants. So once we get past that, what are we going to be offering the customers, and what do they have the choice of doing? So what we're offering here is our standard broadband is 300 megabits per second. We have an ultra at 500 and gig at 100,000. Right now, we also have two low income qualifying services called Spectrum Internet Assist and Spectrum 100 available for the qualifying residents. We also offer the ACP, or Affordable Connectivity Program. This is money that the federal government set aside to offset costs of broadband for qualifying homes. From what we hear, unless the federal government comes out and puts in some more money, that pot of money could run out by first quarter of next year. So we're hoping that the federal government will reappropriate additional funds for that, because that has been a very successful program across the country. Not only can people subscribe to the broadband service, but they'll have the video services, they'll have home phone service, and the mobile phone services that Spectrum now offers. And Spectrum is the fastest growing mobile carrier in the country, so we think we offer a very, very good product. So with that, that was a lot of information fairly quickly, but I'm happy to entertain questions you may have.
The standard that you had up there, how does it compare to the satellite?
The services?
That last slide, that broadband high-speed internet, the 300, the standard, how does that compare to satellite?
We blow them away. I think satellite is in the range of 25 to 50, maybe 100.
22 to 25, yep.
Yeah.
I'm with you.
We are will be a hardline connectivity. The service, we'll blow them away. In direct-to-head comparison, you're going to want a hardline service as opposed to a satellite service.
Yep.
Satellite's great when you don't have any other choices. I don't want to knock them down at all, but head-to-head comparison, we'll do a much better job, and the customer will have a better experience.
Is there an appeals process, just getting back to the how far off the main road? Is there like a process that somebody can go through that if you deem it's too far off, that where do they go? I mean, is there any hope?
All right, this is Mike Tank speaking, not an official Spectrum position. We have seen up in Virginia, they have taken some of the state funds, the ARPA funds, and they've created a long drop formula so that if somebody is off that road a ways and it's going to cost X amount of dollars, the state will help offset that with a fund very similar to what North Carolina is doing with the pole fund. We know that there is some conversations going on with the state about that in North Carolina. Exactly where they stand on it, I don't know. That might be part of that stopgap fund, that 90 million that they're talking about. So there is the potential of that.
I'll make a motion right now, Mr. Chairman, that we ask our House and Senate member to go ahead and we want them to look at that in depth and try to help anybody who, as Mr. Tank says, this long drop formula to be applied to help people finish out to get the broadband if it's too far off the main road.
Second.
Okay. Motion and second. Discussion. Think it'd be a good idea. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Any other questions? Good.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
I will note, you have previously allocated $1 million total of ARPA funds for broadband. There is $900,000 remaining for the CAB program match and whatever else might be relevant. So I know Mr. Tang's company, as well as a few others, are interested in pursuing funds. We'll talk more about that coming up, but it will be different than the GREAT grant where they essentially came to us and the state. This one, it'll be more of a bid process and how much are you doing, you know, where's it, those sorts of things. So we're all waiting patiently for the state to get that information out. So we'll be talking about it soon.
You may be more patient than us.
I'm getting a little thin on patience too. We are running out of time for ARPA, and so we're all kind of worried about that deadline coming up in the next year or so. So we're that, and we want more service. So that's the primary thing. We'll get there.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Next on the agenda, item F, we have our dear friend, Miss Amanda Flynn here. Amanda Flynn to talk about the Fonta Flora Trail update, and I see my friend Steve Pierce back there as well. So we welcome you guys tonight, and Amanda, the floor is yours.
Thank you. We come as a package unit.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, Commissioners. Good evening. I'm happy to be here to update you on what I think are very exciting projects coming up with the Fonta Flora State Trail. Once you get used to an Apple, you can never work with a Microsoft again. Maybe I'm not giving too many trade secrets away. All right, so again, my name is Amanda Fenn. Thank you for having me here today. To those of you who haven't had the pleasure of meeting so far, I'm going to go over just a little bit of who we are as the Friends Group. We're the official nonprofit partners of the Fonta Flora State Trail, which is a planned 100-mile corridor from Morganton, North Carolina to the city of Asheville. So it runs through 3 excellent counties in western North Carolina. I'm a little bit biased because I got to grow up in McDowell County. So the state does not currently allocate staff or funding to the Fonta Flora State Trail. That's our job. So that's the role that we fill in this capacity. As you can see on this map here, we've got a lot of lovely state trails that pass through McDowell County. You've got 4 of them. We're very fortunate in McDowell County to have the kind of congruence of 4 state trails, Fonta Flora being one of them, the Over Mountain Victory Trail, Mountains to Sea Trail, and in the southern part, Wilderness Gateway, which is forthcoming. So we've got a lot of outdoor amenities to offer our citizens. This tells just a little bit about when we were started. The nonprofit began in December 2019, so we're a relatively new nonprofit. Fonta Flora State Trail was authorized in the General Assembly in 2015. Took a while for us to get it together, but now we're here and happy to be serving you. So our mission is to promote, plan, build, maintain, and advocate for Fonta Flora State Trail with diverse trail partners. So we will work with a variety of local governments, we work with other nonprofits, we work with community groups to make sure that people have access to the trail, and we promote the trail as well. So all those lovely blazes you see. So far, we have 30.9 designated miles. 9.4 of those is currently in McDowell County, and we have raised $1.4 million to date for the Fonta Flora State Trail through grants, matching programs, donations. These are the open segments that you see here. This is the interior of our most recent brochure that tells you how many miles we have on the ground in different sections, the surface of the trail, whether it's natural surface, greenway, what have you. It's a mountain bike trail, multi-use trail, and all of the segments that we have in McDowell County. You can see Black Bear County Park is listed as coming soon, so we're really excited about that opportunity as well. So I'm going to tell you about a couple of 2023 projects that we have coming up. I had to put a few people on the spot. Ooh. Commissioner Brown and Commissioner Green were very happy to see them at this Old Fort Fonta, Flora Trailhead and Arrowhead Park groundbreaking. This was a groundbreaking and trailhead that was funded by a PARTIF grant, that's Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. McDowell County generously donated to that cause $100,000. The town of Old Fort contributed $100,000, and the Friends of the Fauna Flora State Trail secured a private donation of $100,000 so that we could proceed with this project. We raised $330,000 in match, 25 of those being from the McDowell Trails Association for a dog park. And we will see 100 parking spaces, restrooms, a picnic pavilion, and a dog park, which will equate to a $660,000 Phase 1 project that will be on the ground in Old Fort. We have an approximate timeline of 9 months for construction. So very exciting. This is the illustrative master plan that Destination by Design created for us. As you can see, all of these amenities will not be available in Phase 1. We are currently going after funding to ensure that Phase 2 happens as quickly as possible. That will include a playground for children. That will include a pump track, which we hope will happen sooner rather than later with some of our partners. And that will also include other amenities like a hammock paddock and a meadow garden that will include some ecological educational opportunities. All right, so we're breaking ground in just a few days, August 17th. That is the latest start date that our construction company has. So very exciting that all of this momentum is finally coming to fruition. The second project that I want to bring your attention to in 2023 is the RTP Recreational Trails Program Extension Project. This is the kind of second phase for the trail in the Old Fort Trailhead project. This is the McDowell County TDA provided a $25,000 match for us to secure these funds. It secures $100,000 of RTP money, which is state via federal funding, that will be able to extend the trail past the trailhead plan that you saw across the railroad tracks, continue on the town of Old Fort land, and reach Curtis Creek. And that will be Phase 2 of this Old Fort Trailhead project. The project budget for this is $125,000. This is the floodplain map to give you a little bit better idea. If you see in the aqua over here, that plot of land that is outlined, that is where the trailhead will be. And then past that, the red line that you see up to the point of Curtis Creek will be Phase 2. We are currently trying to secure funds for a bridge that will cross Curtis Creek. So cross your fingers and your toes that we get those grants, and hopefully I'll be back to present that to you very soon. All right, and our final project that we have here is the Complete the Trails Land Acquisition Grant. In order to reimburse Foothills Conservancy of North Carolina and to spare McDowell County the expense of a parcel of land for a future Fauna Flora trailhead that will be part of Phase 3 of the Joseph McDowell Historic Catawba Greenway, Friends of Fauna Flora State Trail applied for and was awarded $108,500 to pay for the parcel. In the same grant cycle, we also applied for an $88,012 to reimburse the town of Old Fort for property that will be the entrance road for the Old Fort Fonta Flora Trailhead. And we'll have a lovely road through there, an existing road, and also a trail that runs parallel to the existing road. So it'll go right by Davidson's Fort. Okay, so that brings me to the reason that I wanted to come before you today and make a request. You know I can't leave without a request, right? So the Fauna Flora State Trail McDowell County feasibility study was a $90,000 feasibility study funded by Dogwood Health Trust. And we have just gotten the draft, the complete draft of that feasibility study, which studied over 30 miles of potential trail just in McDowell County. And one of the reasons that we brought this to you early before we have gone through public outreach and consensus and landowner outreach is because there is a segment of the potential trail that has been identified that is all NCDOT right-of-way. And it's along Greenlee Road, which you will be able to see here. So it goes from where, what we will call Phase 3, so where the bridge for the Old Fort Fonta Flora Trailhead project will be located after we cross Curtis Creek at the exit or terminus on Greenlee Road, all the way out to basically the Catawba River on Highway 70, where that bridge is. It's right across from Burnett's Road. And so this particular portion is basically the only way we can connect the Fauna Flora State Trail to this final Old Fort segment. So coming from the Phase 3 of the Joseph McDowell Greenway, which is planned to end at Resistaflex Road, to Old Fort. It's just a very tricky bit of road because the river braids there in certain portions. This is basically the way that we'll be able to get over the Catawba River and make sure that there's contiguous connectivity between Old Fort and Pleasant Gardens and Marion. So we currently have open slots. As I see, you'll be discussing this in new business later to support open NCDOT STIP project slots. I'm asking that you allocate one of those slots to this project so we can go ahead and get the project on the record and we can begin earning points for the project to be completed. As you well know, the longer that a project sits on this list, the more points that are accrued, in addition to any points that are accrued by nature of need or public input. So that is my request of you all.
Okay.
Thank you so much for letting me speak to you today. I appreciate you all.
Any questions?
Any questions?
Just comment, McDowell County has 4 major trails in it, for it to be developed, of course, but a lot of opportunities for people to get outside and enjoy nature, and has a healthy impact on them too, which is good.
A large portion of our county is constituted of public lands and natural resources, and we truly have one of the most beautiful counties, I think.
And we're very fortunate to have the McDowell Trail Association. That group is very active and does a lot of volunteer work on the trails, and so hats off to that group too.
Absolutely.
We do support what you guys do, and we will certainly take a hard look at everything that you have here.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Mr. Wooten, it says she's asking.
We could go ahead and do the endorsement tonight.
I'll make a motion we go ahead and endorse the section of trail to be included on the North Carolina DOT project list.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? There you go. Thank you
Thank
very
you,
much.
gentlemen. I appreciate your support.
Thank you. You guys have a good day. Next is the old business. Under old business, item A is the city fire funding request. Mr. Wooten, if you want to lead us off on that.
Yes, sir. Sometimes we have items that doesn't really matter that much, but is this a new business? Is it an old business? And I put in an old business because you'll remember, I think it was maybe the same meeting Mr. Keller was talking about, where you talked about the fire and rescue contracts. There was discussion about having a request from the city to increase their fire tax for the Marion area, which is 9.33 cents. You did not approve that request, as you know. You kept the fire tax at the prior level, but there was a subsequent request that came from City Council. They understand it was a tough year to do a tax increase, but they did want to convey that they do have equipment needs. And recognizing that you do have a special relationship to fund 50% of the function of the Marion Fire Department, they're asking to consider using one-time funds for the purchase of equipment that is listed on the city manager's letter. I'll just hit the highlights. There's purchase of heavy rescue equipment and trailer. There's turnout gear. There are 4 Viper radios and pagers for the coming year as well. So the total that they're asking for in this request is $28,000 to cover a portion of that equipment, and they have committed to cover the balance if you were to make that commitment.
I think this board had already by consensus agreed to that. Am I not correct?
There's been quite a bit of discussion. There's not been a vote
Mr.
yet.
Chairman, I'll make a motion we approve the request as presented. For the record, we did not approve the increase in the district on the fire tax, but this is, this is for equipment.
And this was asked for in the budget process.
Yes.
Right, so it's not something they threw at us late in the game.
So we've got a motion
Second.
and a second.
What is the balance, Mr. Wood?
The balance of the equipment request.
You said our part's 28.
Yes, sir.
And the city would pay the balance. What's the
So
balance?
if my math is correct, they're paying more than the 28 on top of that. So typically, there's at least a 50-50 share. So they were to be at least expected to pay $28,000 on top of what we're doing.
Gotcha.
But based on the math they've sent, it would be a little bit higher.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next is item B, the water project update. Mr. Wood.
Yes, sir. Most, if not all of this is updates. I'll be pretty quick about it. We're finally starting to see, not yet digging, but very close, work in Nebo. There's a press release, appreciate the McDowell News running that, for it's technically two different phases called 1A and 1B. But thankfully for us and others, it's one contractor, which is Hyatt Pipeline out of Canton. They are starting within the week on setup in the area, and as far as the actual digging, it'll probably be at the end of August. And so I've talked. I don't have the road list here, but it's mostly Ned Magempsey, Jack Corpening, NC 126 towards the county line. Lonesome Pine is in there. A few other side roads. So if I didn't, I better mention Bentwood Drive, where we have some interested parties. So there's a couple others that I did not mention. That work will all take place over the next approximately 9 months, which is very important because it leads into other planned work, such as Phase 2, which is coming back towards Marion. Also, the East End project around the lake that is going to happen a little bit later as well. It's all interdependent. So as far as Nebo, 1A and 1B are practically underway. We also have the smaller water and sewer project at Universal. That has been awarded to a company called Kemp Sigmund. But most of the work is going to be, that's an out-of-town company, but most of the work is going to be done by a local company, Sugar Hill Contractors. So signed a notice to proceed on that last week, and any day now they'll start that project. So that'll provide water and sewer to the new building sites that have been prepared out near the ponds at Universal. I mentioned Phase 2A and Hoppy Time are in early permitting review. East End, you have approved the contracts there, and they have signed the contracts. The ARC grant, I have a meeting tomorrow with Foothills Regional Commission about the grant funded project around Exit 90. That is Appalachian Regional Commission and local funds. And the West Marion Elementary area project, I have signed a couple of things on your behalf with Appalachian Regional Commission that is going to fund a portion of the work towards the school. The project delineation at this point does not go that far, but we're trying to lay the groundwork for that. Dr. Gritt was here earlier, of course. One of the first conversations I had with him several weeks ago was about this water line, just to make sure he understands there were prior conversations about it between staff as well as board members, and a potential partnership there for maybe school participation, some of the funding, potentially if needed. He was very excited about it and looked forward to continuing the conversation. So this one, we're still waiting on award from federal agencies. Any questions about water?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Wood. Next is item C, which is the capital update, if you will, Mr. Wood.
Yes, sir. Talked about pending a lot in the last one. We're waiting a lot on our capital projects. First off, and maybe most importantly as far as dollars, we're waiting on potentially, or the recreation center It's been a little over 2 months ago, we had a bid opening for the Recreation Center project for there on Academy and West Court Street. As a reminder, the state funding you have in hand is $4 million, and the lowest bid was $10.4 million. Big difference, obviously. There has been some subsequent conversations with the state General Assembly members about maybe assistance with that deficit, but it's a big deficit to overcome. We've talked about how can you bridge that gap, and if there are no other funds that come to the county, how do you legally, how can you proceed? There's some question about what's a reasonable adjustment with a low bidder, for example. That's in the eye of the beholder. I have asked and asked again for an opinion of the School of Government on what reasonable might be. It might be reasonable for some that a $6.4 million adjustment is okay, and maybe not for others. So anyway, we are waiting on the state budget, just like everyone else. We have heard many different dates that it might be unveiled. I think the speaker said last week that there was 0% chance of it being unveiled before Labor Day. So I think he would know. So we may be here next month, maybe with a budget and maybe with some news on that item and others. But I wouldn't hold your breath for it to happen before then. The services building, much in the same way. I've mentioned the estimate on that is over $800,000. We do have some state money in hand for that, but not enough to do all that. Talked about the animal shelter. You've at least allowed for design work to proceed, and that's underway. Very glad to report, I have informally, but glad to report officially that the former pilot plant on Ag Services Drive was sold. The buyers have been moving very quickly. I had an email from Contera, the fiber optic company. I don't know if Mr. Tank left, but Contera has been approached by those buyers to get fiber to that building, and they were asking if the county had interest elsewhere along that road. But they're moving very quickly, trying to make up for lost time for some of the things they were waiting on their end. And then finally, the Garden Street parking lot planning. Obviously, the old Station 1 is gone. There have been discussions preliminarily with the city representatives on the utility committee about entering a partnership with essentially expanding the existing parking lot. And so I have spoken with Mr. Riddle about some preliminary design work. He does have some concern about Mr. Keller, I think he left, but some of the soil around the old building where there's a slope might need to be addressed before a parking lot is put there. So just for example, one of the things we need to look at top of the city. That's all I have on capital items.
Services building,
Yes, sir.
is it possible that we could do that in 2 phases, and with the money in hand, state funding we have in hand, get part of it knocked out?
For the 325 or so that we have, could probably do either some basic cosmetic work if you're looking at, under the idea of moving probation and parole there. You could do some of that work cosmetically, moving some walls and doors and things. Or you could do some HVAC work. The issue that we have is if you do HVAC work, that's going to require probably the removal of the ceiling grid. It might not, but it's much harder with that grid in place to do that work. And if you do that, then you don't have to, but you're probably going to have to replace the tiles, probably want to replace the lighting. And so at least that part would have to be done, if nothing else. I don't have the cost estimate in the binder, but that the HVAC work, I believe it was most of that number, that 325. the engineer that our architect is talking to does believe that you can physically have a new HVAC system put on the second floor while maintaining the existing system for downstairs, with the idea that the downstairs, the first floor, would have to be improved at some point. But he's recommending if you're going to do that disruption on the second floor with HVAC, if you have the money, try to do other work while it's cleared out, because there's no way you can have staff up there while you're doing that work. So if you don't have the money, then maybe you make compromises. So it's something that we could continue to dig down on as to what's possible.
Okay. All right, thank you, Mr. Wooten. Next is item D, which is the ordinance update. Mr. Wooten, if you'll lead us off on that one.
Yes, sir. This is an item that probably about 6 months ago, maybe longer, you had asked the planning board to look into based on concerns expressed to you about essentially shooting happening at dark. And so you charged the planning board to look at the issue of individuals, groups, or what have you, essentially shooting at dark, perhaps in close proximity to their neighbors, and probably not necessarily in a way of benefit, if that's a way to put it, of either hunting or defending their property, those sorts of things. Maybe recreationally or just blowing off steam, or however you want to put it. So that was what was sent to the planning board. Mr. Harmon brought back a draft ordinance maybe about 3 or 4 months ago, and what was presented is similar to what you have in your packet, but different in a few ways. But what was presented was not a time limitation on recreational shooting or any sort of shooting. It was a shooting based on proximity. And there was, as I understand it from Mr. Harmon, discussion in the planning board about if there was a time limitation, for example, no shooting after 10 o'clock. There's obviously enforcement issues for our good friends at the sheriff's office. There's also statutory protections with nighttime hunting and other things. So there was concerns about just no shooting after 10. So what they came up with was a draft ordinance that would limit shooting in close proximity to a neighbor. Last time, if you recall, there was some uncertainty about the 300-foot distance from a residence. I think Mr. Green asked, well, does that mean I can't shoot within 300 feet of my house? And the way it was written, it kind of said that. And so that was clarified to say it's 300 feet within a neighbor's property and not the person shooting the gun. So beyond that, there are some other minor tweaks, but that's essentially the change from what you've seen before. And as I noted in the memo, you could take it as information. You could make a motion to approve it, or send it back, or change it however you'd like.
I'm going to be the first probably to, maybe the only one, to say that I'm opposed to the firearms ordinance. Number one, I don't think that we as a government entity need to be telling people what they can and cannot do on their private property. Second, when I served on the board previously, this board adopted a resolution in support of the Second Amendment. So are we going to back up and start telling people that we're going to regulate when they can exercise that right? I don't think I want to do that. I had the 911 center to run me a report of the firearms complaints for the year 2022. And I went through those calls. Most of those calls where they started out as a firearms complaint turned out being either fireworks or something else. Didn't turn out to be a firearm at all. So if we say we've got so many hundred calls regarding firearms, I think we need to take a closer look at what they actually were. One of those calls, and this is no reflection on the sheriff's office, but one of those calls, a deputy explained to the accused the current McDowell County firearms ordinance. I think we need to educate our law enforcement on the steps that they can take to alleviate some of this stuff. In question, where a lot of complaints are coming from is the residents on Seal Street, where I know that a couple of you have got some complaints personally. I think as a deputy sheriff or as a Marion PD, if I went out on one of those calls, having been a deputy myself before, I would identify who the accused is, and it might not even be legal for them to have the firearm. So that would take care of that problem. I don't see anything in those reports where those folks that were accused were identified. I also think that it's going to be almost impossible for our sheriff's office to enforce an ordinance that says 300 feet from point of discharge. How are you going to measure that? So I was opposed to it before, and I'm always going to be opposed to it.
Mr. Wooten, so the planning board recommends, per the memo, the ordinance, instead of incorporating a gunfire time frame regulation in the noise ordinance, right?
Yes, sir.
So they recommend doing it. What's the position of the sheriff's department?
I won't speak for these gentlemen. If you want to call on them, you can. I did speak with the sheriff. It's been a few months, but my recollection was that he had a lot of the same concerns that Commissioner Green had about identifying actually where the shooting was taking place in relation to, was it 305 feet or was it 295 feet? It can be done, and he has a lot of faith in his staff in doing it the best of their ability. But sometimes, as noted, it could be very difficult. I mean, you're maybe looking for casings and maybe just trying to pinpoint it. It puts a lot of burden on law enforcement to find out if they're in that
so the sheriff's opposed to it, right?
He has concerns about the way,
well,
not necessarily the way it's written, but
we're not professionals. And if the sheriff's department is opposed to it, I'll go on record and be opposed to it. I'll say.
I can say that in discussion with the sheriff, he is opposed to the measure brought in place. I mean, again, he has brought up issues and concerns about the enforcement side of the measure, and you go out and talk to somebody and they say, all right, he's saying I was shooting here, I wasn't there, I was on the other side of the house when I shot. I mean, there's no way you're playing he says, she says, so you've got that side of it. And also, if somebody's at their own residence and they might be 295 feet from another residence or whatever, but they're shooting in a safe manner, got a berm at their house. I mean, you've got all sorts of different concerns that have been brought up by the sheriff.
I agree with Commissioner Green as well, and I also believe there's already too many regulations on the Second Amendment, and I oppose this, and I have since day one. So I'll make a motion to reject the ordinance.
Second.
Under discussion, so, I mean, I'm on record saying I'm opposed to it now because the sheriff's department's opposed to it. So to get back to what you're saying, Commissioner Green, so what enforceable actions could be taken, and what do we do with the people who do have a real legitimate complaint?
People shooting at night does that not fall under the noise ordinance?
If you took, yes, sir, it does. Well, once again, well, it's got to be for the purpose of causing a nuisance. And I totally agree with what Commissioner Green said as far as, and I ain't gonna speak for the sheriff and him not being in here, but I know his biggest concern with that ordinance was the distance from any, I think it might read a statement of any occupied dwelling. And I'm not going to say that he's 110% against any type of ordinance, but like you stated, Mr. Chairman, if it's something where alcohol's involved or some type of negligent discharge, and that's going to fall back on general statute. That's correct.
So the answer to the question, general statute covers it, right? Okay.
So
The thing that I will say that I wanted to see in there, and I still want to see it in there. You know, I believe there should be a time at night when the shooting has to stop. You know, people try to, you know, I myself like to go to bed at night, and I have people on the ridge around me that she wants to shoot all night long. You know, that I don't think it's unrealistic to ask people to you know, recognize what their neighbor, you know.
Noise ordinance.
And speaking from a sheriff's office standpoint, I mean, that especially with the distance, or I think there was even the mention of having an agreement, a written agreement between you and your neighbor saying it's okay to shoot this time of day or for this amount of time during the day. It's going to cause our call volumes to skyrocket.
I'm a shooter. I have lots of guns, and I'm an avid shooter, and we have a gun range that you can go shoot at now. But I just, you know, I respect the hunting at night. You know, I don't think there should be any limitation put on hunting at night. But when it comes to just, you know, getting drunk, and shooting all night long, and keeping your neighbors up all night long, I don't agree with that.
Planning board, you know, that's all I have to do to respect for your neighbors, and unfortunately, for some people, went out the window a long time ago, you know.
Yeah.
So if somebody's shooting later than or when the noise ordinance starts, then someone could call and say, can y'all come get him quiet, and if it could get out there and
which we do daily. Yeah.
Right, so just stick to the noise ordinance and let the noise ordinance.
The noise ordinance would take care of that. Is that what you're saying?
I'm sorry?
The noise, I think
That's my question. The noise ordinance should resolve the issue of someone outside shooting multiple rounds after, 12 o'clock midnight.
If it's
got to be for the purpose of creating a nuisance. So the way it's currently,
and that's in the noise ordinance.
Is somebody can go target practice and say, I'm target practicing tonight.
But their neighbor at 12 o'clock at night, that's a nuisance.
But they can say, I've got night sights put on this gun, I'm trying to sight in, and I'm shooting, but it's for the purpose of that, is what they're saying.
Mr. Wood, correct me if I'm wrong, but did we not determine that you cannot include the firearms in the noise ordinance, according to general statute?
I might look at triangulate to the attorney. I believe you can regulate discharge of firearms in your noise ordinance with lots of caveats. So, I mean, can you regulate the time as long as it's not hunting and as long as it's not maybe a few other defensive property, those sorts of things? You probably have some ability to limit it for reasons outside of those.
Any violation of the noise ordinance has to be for the purpose of creating a nuisance, correct?
Last time I read it, it's my understanding, which is extremely difficult, obviously.
But to get back to what Tony said, though, and what you just said to us, Ashley, you could tie into the noise ordinance a time, a certain time at 11 o'clock at night, and then put whatever caveats you wanted to for exemptions in there, correct? In the noise ordinance?
I think you could.
Yeah, I think we can do that. I think
Go ahead. I'm good to go and go under the understanding if someone's shooting and it's bothering you trying to sleep at night, or
you know, that's, to try to let them go out there and evaluate the situation. There may be somebody drunker than a skunk, trying to shoot a skunk, who knows?
Which they do that, and most time, correct me if I'm wrong, most time when you go out and talk to folks, unless they are 3 sheets in the wind, they're agreeable to stop.
I mean, most people are, they will, you can go talk to them and say, hey, we got a call, it's kind of late at night, you got neighbors trying to sleep. Most people are cooperative, and I mean, yes, you might have some that buck up that have had a few too many.
And I'd say that most of your complaints come from folks that will not go across the street and talk to their neighbor.
I would suggest too that, let the planning board, let them know that we greatly appreciate their efforts, but, this is a dead deal right now. If we vote the way I think we're gonna vote.
Well, I'm gonna vote against it just because it don't have everything I wanted in it, so, but anyway, what's the pleasure of the board?
We got a motion second.
Okay, you got a motion and a second.
Motion and second to reject.
Do what?
We've got a motion and second to reject.
Okay, any other discussion? All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Moving into new business, we have under item A, the Sheriff's Office equipment request, and Mr. Wick, you can lead us off on that.
Yes, sir. I was contacted by the sheriff towards the end of June with a request for primarily, I'll say body-worn cameras, but it was also in that proposal, in that discussion, tasers. So he has a proposal that you have in your packet from a company. It used to be called Taser International. It's called Axon now. That they are in the business of selling body-worn cameras as well as tasers. And now they are they sell essentially a package deal. And even beyond that, the technology and the equipment is interrelated. And so, as it's been explained to me, I'm sure these gentlemen could explain it even better, is that when a taser is activated, assuming it's all the same type company, it'll activate a camera if it's already not already activated. And so there's a lot of reasons you might want to do that. Anyway, so you've got the proposal has been sent by the sheriff. There's been some discussion, maybe from the sheriff to myself as well as individual commissioners. And so I asked him for maybe some thoughts about how to pay for the proposal. What you see in the packet is from the sheriff. And so year one, which would essentially be right now, his requesting to utilize savings from his fiscal year budget that closed June 30th. The sheriff, like many of your department leaders, some better than others perhaps, but definitely the sheriff was a good steward of the money that you send to his office. He was a very good steward this past year, and to the point of having available funds in that year end, which is approximately $150,000, there would be enough money to cover that first year's payment. The second year, he proposes to use money in his current budget, as well as, if that's not enough, to use inmate revenue, jail revenue, from where we have inmates from the federal government as well as other counties. For year 3, 4, and 5, out of this 5-year agreement, he is proposing to essentially split half of the cost. So half of it would be general fund dollars that are essentially maybe a line item in the sheriff's budget. The other half would come from other revenue sources, probably the jail revenue. And so out of the total proposal, he's asking for additional consideration to happen, not this fiscal year, but that first budgeted payment would be in fiscal year '25. So next July's budget. Does that all make sense?
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion we approve the request by the sheriff for the body cameras and tasers, and in this approval, agreeing with his plan to pay for that, with us being a partner on a 50-50 split from years 3 to 5, and us immediately applying for any grant monies we can to offset any cost.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm going to vote against this because of the budget's already been done for this year. I do know that this is looking at year 3, 4, and 5, but I am concerned about the expenses of any new expenditures, and just wanted everybody to know where I stood.
Other discussion? Got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Okay, moving on to item B, the transfer station improvement. Mr. Wooten.
Yes, sir. At the end of last month's meeting, there was a discussion about a recognition that our transfer station and the facility surrounding it is in need of work, and that is not a shock or surprise to anybody on county staff. Because I noted at that time, we are still awaiting 6 months after the deadline notification, up or down, on an EPA grant. That was about $4 million that, if received, would go towards improving the transfer station facility itself, the scale house, the road, most importantly, which is very hard to maintain. And so we're still waiting on that. In the meantime, as you are probably aware, if you've been any day of the week, but especially Saturday, we have a lot of traffic. And I have spoken, I think maybe one of the first conversations I had with Mr. Riddle when he came to work with us a few months ago was look at the transfer station facility beyond some of the physical things that we're committed to do to improve the actual shell there, the customer aspect of it. What can we do to improve it? His recommendation, as is mine, an immediate, relatively immediate step that could be taken is to add a second set of scales at that scale house. So right now, as you probably know, there's a one-way in and one-way out with traffic. We weigh almost everybody going in. We weigh non-commercial traffic going out. Most garbage trucks, whether it's Republic or the city, we have a tear weight with that truck so we can deduct their weight from their incoming weight. But, you know, Joe Q Public that goes in, we don't have their pickup in there, or a small business. So second set of scales, we would weigh everybody going in and everybody going out, with the same staff, but the timing should be cut in half with the people going, waiting in line. So this is equipment. It is not a improvement to a facility, so it can be financed, and it can be financed with no LGC approval. It is about $100,000. We do have some facility improvement money.
It's definitely a need.
In hand now.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion we approve the request by staff as presented.
Second.
Any other discussion?
When you say to bid on or otherwise acquire a set of scales, explain exactly
Otherwise
what that
acquire, maybe. I don't think I have looked, and as is Mr. Riddle and maybe Ms. Bell's staff, if, for example, the sheriff's procurement program has scales already that have been pre-bid, we can purchase things under that program. I haven't found scales yet. We'll look again, but if not, we'll probably have to do, it's an informal bid, but we'd have to get pricing.
Okay.
Okay.
Otherwise, we'll get competitive pricing from the current vendor we use and anybody else.
Okay, we had a motion and a second. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next item C, the WNC Rail Study, Mr. Wood.
This is mostly information. The McDowell News did run it, a really good piece the other day about the story, and I think the Citizen Times ran a similar article today. If you've been around even longer than I have with the county, just been paying attention, the state has studied the restoration of passenger rail to Western North Carolina, Asheville in particular, at least in 95, 2002. I think there was a subsequent update of 2002, and now they've done another study. And it's essentially every time they do it, they update the dollars and some of the operational concerns. Years ago, there was a lot of Norfolk Southern rail traffic. That was a concern. Now there's not enough Norfolk Southern traffic, and it's not been maintained as much that it used to be. But the gist of what the draft report you've got is very early, but there's a lot of momentum around passenger rail expansion in the country. The state doesn't want to miss out on any opportunity, whether it's Western North Carolina, Southeastern North Carolina, or whatever else. And so they are asking communities along these lines to do a letter of endorsement to send to our federal delegation as well as the state delegation.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the letter of endorsement as presented.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Moving along to item D, the NCDOT project. Mr. Wood.
Ms. Finn referenced this earlier. We are required now, we always haven't been as a unit of local government, to endorse the prioritization list that is developed by our rural planning organization. And so these are projects, and I apologize, it's a little grainy. These are projects that have been identified, really some over decades, by either city, town, or county of being a priority. You'll see improvements to the 5-lane. You'll see widening of 221 towards Rutherford County, which has been talked about 30 or 40 years. And so the highlighted projects are currently in the list. You endorse adding some Fonta, Flora language in there as well. So they're asking for a resolution of endorsement for this. I've also, I know there's prior discussion, I am continually asked, and I'll ask again for an elected official to serve on the RPO committee for reasons such as this. So
I make a motion to
requests.
approve the attached resolution and project list, and if the board so desires, I would serve on that committee.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor of that, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next, item E, the resolution to support strong school. Mr. Wooten, explain it.
Yes, sir. Explain what we've got here. Was asked to prepare a resolution endorsing school choice. And if you read the resolution, it's not necessarily, it isn't in the title, but is made very clear in the resolution that request that I've hopefully honored. But I maybe went above and beyond that to indicate, based on what I've heard over 20 years, that this board wants good schools, wants strong schools, whether they're private, they're public. We don't have any charters, but if you did, you want those to be strong too. And I do note that you've been a strong proponent of funding public education, and you're not going to change that, but you want to reiterate your support for all the schools in this county, public or private or otherwise, including homeschools, and that you're urging the General Assembly to maintain that school choice, as well as maintain, if not enhance, the public school funding.
Okay.
Just trying to do a little bit of everything.
Move we approve the resolution.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
On this, if we approve this resolution, it could be that we are going to be required because of head count in the public schools, if they want to go to private schools or charter schools, then it could affect the funding for the private school. Am I correct?
For the public school.
For the public school, am I correct?
The way the opportunity scholarship discussion has been and laid out as far as the legislation, any time a student does not enroll in a public school system, that is funding that school, the school system is not getting from the state. And so the concern that's been expressed, to your point, is that if there's encouragement for enrollment in parochial schools or other schools, that there will be not necessarily maybe a mass exodus of students from public to private, but it was certainly
there's funding already. I mean, it's a limited pool of money they have set aside for the opportunity scholarships in general. So that would prohibit what you're saying, a mass exodus.
So, right, so there.
But it is based off head count, and it would be
Every
affected.
day, ADM.
Right, so if the ADM
100%.
drops, there is less money to the school system, and that's a little bit about what's talked about here. Maybe an attempt to have your cake and eat it too, of supporting school choice, allowing parents to send their kids wherever they find appropriate, and hopefully it's, like our private schools that are doing great, but not causing harm to the public school system here, because as been explained over time, if the school system loses, let's just say $10,000 of funding because of one student, that's maybe about 2 students a year. That's not a full staff person. So you'd have to lose a lot of students to really make sense for the math for eliminating a teacher, if that makes sense. So less students should mean less teachers, but has been explained, and if you think about it, they're usually spread out over ages, and it's not like all of 3rd grade just lost a class. It may be 2 3rd graders, it may be 2 4th graders. And so the school system has to maintain those ratios and those teachers. And so they're taking on more of that burden of the local teachers. So that's where at least this resolution tries to maintain, if not enhancing, school choice opportunities, but making the point that school funding is important for the public school system.
I favor the money should go with the kid, and the parents should make the choice of whatever school they go to. That's the way I look at it. That's why I'm looking forward to this.
No discussion.
If I, as a parent, am a taxpayer, and my child needs an education, but I choose to send my child to a private school rather than the public school, my child should have the same monetary support coming from my tax dollars.
Because you pay taxes.
Exactly. And that's what we're saying.
Yeah. Not that we want to do anything to, as Patrick said, not that we want to do anything to hurt the public schools, but the public schools should strive to excel, which they do. And private schools, if I as a parent choose to not place my child in the public school, 100% of that money that's allocated for my girls should follow my girls to whatever school I choose to send them to. It's just my personal take on it. But I agree, Patrick, you're right. We're not trying to hurt the public schools in any way by this resolution.
We're supporting the parent.
Yeah.
And as the manager and as you as board, I don't have to remind you because you've said it, but maybe I will. If they have reduced funding, there is a possibility that you are approached, if it was like a draconian cut, for example, to say if we don't have support from the commissioners to supplement state funding that's been cut, and I'm speculating, but I've been here a while, that conversation could happen.
Do you know what my response would be? You support me as a parent and teach my child the things that make a good moral citizen out of that child, and I'll support you. But until then, I'm going to decide where my child goes, and I'm going to decide where my tax dollars go.
And there is a movement on the state level.
Going back to
choice. To choice. And it's, choice is where it's at, where it should be.
Last thing I'll say, and then I'll shut up. I've heard someone with the school system say, and I won't say the name because it may be an official statement, saying that that person at least was for school choice, but they want McDowell County Public Schools to be the choice. So there's a little bit of competition in it to where they want to be as best as they can be, to where those parents maybe don't choose them, but at least make sure they're doing the best they can to attract that student. So that
I will say, I want to congratulate the school board and the new superintendent on imposing a dress code policy for their students. Hats off to the school board and the superintendent. That's been needed for a long time. I mean, they're high school kids. They need to look like somebody when they go to school. Stay focused.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Item F is the budget report, Mr. Wooten.
It's mostly information. You have your sales tax. Through May, you have property tax collection, which is very misleading, but it's truthful. It's 0.3% of collections, and that is reflective of the fact that for July, that bills did not get sent out until July 31st. So some people do prepay. There are a couple of action items. There are budget amendments, GF1 and SRF1, which is related to the opioids funding that you've previously allocated. And there's one project budget ordinance for the Old Fort Gateway project, which is the trail project that we are acting as a fiscal agent for, where there's no county funds.
Mr. Chairman, make a motion to approve the two budget amendments and the project budget ordinance.
We have a motion second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, next is item G, the administrative item. Mr. Wooten.
Thank you. You have EMS write-offs. You have a reimbursement resolution. This is the need for a vehicle for Parks and Recreation. We do, just for information, we do try to find, like NCDOT will have secondhand type vehicles, usually have 80, 90,000 miles on them. Mr. Marsh has said before he will look and keep looking for opportunities like that, but they're hard to come by anymore. So we do have a request to purchase a vehicle. You have more grounds to maintain now, especially with the park coming up. They need to tow tractors and things. So he would probably purchase another F-250 to complement the one he has. There's the donation of property item. Again, you've been approached by a family who would like to donate property to you with some strings attached, and they would like the property, as we've all spoken individually, to be used for the benefit of disadvantaged persons, perhaps children, but disadvantaged persons was mentioned. And this donation would be at the point of their passing. So it would be an estate type planning. And so they want to know if you would take that. It doesn't bind you. If a future board, whenever this may happen, says, you know what, we don't want to do that, that board and that staff would let the estate know, and they would just move on. So at this point, it just helps with estate planning. And then the last item under administrative items is informational. I was asked to provide information related to our exit process, and I sent that out afterwards if it's not in your packet. It's essentially a 3 or 4 page document that states, I, as I'm leaving, understand that I no longer have health insurance, but if I want to maintain COBRA, I can. If I want to stay in the retirement system, this is what those sorts of things, and it just kind of lays it all out for those employees.
For that purpose, the dates on there and who's responsible on the exit procedure. Is that going to be HR?
Yes, sir. Every exiting employee has to go through HR. Sometimes there might be an immediate departure, and those are handled after the fact, but usually they're planned, and those are all handled by Ms. Lee or her competent staff.
So it'll all be documented in the files?
Yes, sir. And this is
prior
happening.
to or after? And
Yes, sir. And it's happening right now, so that it is all put in the file.
I make a motion to accept all administrative items as presented.
Second.
Motion second, discussion.
That includes the accepting of the donation?
Yes.
Of the house, yeah.
I just want to be clear on that.
Yes.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Next, Mr. Wooten, you have board appointments. I think we've already taken care of that, if you want to read them out.
Yes, sir. Just make sure. We had quite a few. I'll mention just for advertising purposes, we have a second reading for the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. We still have a faith-based seat as a vacancy. We'll still have a vacancy for the Old Fort seat for Library Board of Trustees. We will, I think that maybe catches everything. We will still have a vacancy on the Transportation Advisory Board, but all these votes are unanimous, so I'll just read them for the record. For the Library Board of Trustees, the Marion District, Alicia Morgan was appointed. For the McDowell Tech Board of Trustees, Corey J. McKinnon was appointed. For the Planning Board, Dennis J. Whitson, Terry Good, Brenda Vaughn, and Arvin Hicks were appointed. For the Senior Center Focal Point Advisory Committee, Philip Buchanan, David Blackwelder, Mary Blackwelder, and George Reynolds were appointed. For the Tourism Development Authority, Nathan Gowan was appointed. I will note for this one, a nice lady by the name of Rena Hart did apply. I did reach out to Ms. Hart to let her know that she was not eligible to serve because this is a seat for members or for venues or businesses over 50 rooms. So she is not a hotel owner or operator. I did let her know that. Thanks for her interest. And then the Agricultural Advisory Board, Lori Webb was appointed.
Okay.
And we'll let all these folks know, including the staff.
Thank you very much. Next is tax matters, Mr. Wooten.
You have some one discovery as well as the monthly vehicle releases.
Move we approve the tax matters.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, man. Did we have anybody on citizen comments that signed up to? Okay. Now we'll move on to staff reports and communications. Mr. Ellis, you had something?
Yeah, I was wanting to talk about the equalization and review. It's been on my heart for a few months now. As we all know, the legislature sets all the taxation requirements for all counties here in North Carolina. And there were a few issues that were brought up to our attention, the review board, last few months. And I would like for staff to work on a resolution to Warren Daniels and Dudley Green to look into this. One, the application for property tax relief. If you're a single person in McDowell County and your maximum income cannot be more than $36,700, that has not kept up with inflation for the last 25 years. So that is a general statement, but would like for that to be looked into. But if you live with your spouse, your maximum income cannot be more than $36,700, and that is unfair. It needs to be $36,000 per individual, and would like for that to be brought up as well. And then the disabled veteran, the maximum that they can get is a $45,000 decrease on their appraised value. And if you're 65 or older and you're making less than this, you can get up to a 50% reduction. And I'd like to make a proposal to change that to, instead of $45,000, go to a 50% reduction, because I do think we need to try to take care of the disabled veterans. I would like to get staff to work on that so we can vote on it next meeting, if that's okay.
I think it's a great idea. You know, the formula based on inflation, as you said, is not kept, their little tiny amount they allow people to earn. You can't go above that amount. It's way too low, and it needs to be tied to how everything else is went up.
Yeah.
I agree.
I also would like for staff, as a separate measure, to look at the luxury property tax that other states are doing and we are not, and present to us if that would be assistance to our taxpayers here in the county. And that would be for the people that have a residence only. If you have multiple residences, then it would be a second home or more. Just trying to look at how we can help the residents of of McDowell County paying taxes there. So, and that's a separate issue.
So you're saying somebody has just a home in the mountains and here in McDowell County?
In McDowell County.
Elsewhere and live off?
Yes.
Okay.
And there are other states that have a luxury tax that is a little bit better to help reduce the taxation for the single resident homes in the individual counties. So
We'll do that for a motion, Patrick. I'll second.
I'm making all this as a motion to discuss next meeting, because I think
I had brought that same thing up here several years ago, and for some reason I thought that I was told that that couldn't be done.
Not under current law, but maybe to the Commissioner's point, you know, the General Assembly, you know, they do have a constitutional limit on some property tax items, but there maybe is a wiggle room essentially for the
Okay, just
homestead
look into it
exemption.
then.
right. If you could look into it and let us know what you can find on that, that would be greatly appreciated. And then the third item that I have, it's been brought to my attention that there is a homeless camp at Old Fort School property. And they have tents and stuff underneath the interstate bridge, and they're using the Old Fort School property to walk to town. And would like to just make sure that if that is taking place before school starts back, that we can address that situation as well.
Absolutely.
Sir.
That's all I got.
Okay, thank you. Any others? Here, a motion we adjourn. No, we got a
Closed session.
closed session.
Let's vote on that motion.
There here a motion that we go into closed
So
session.
moved.
And pursuant to 143-318.11,
Second.
personnel matters. Motion second. All in favor, aye? Aye. Okay.
Listen, in the absence of the chairman, I entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting.
Second.
Motion.
Second.
Oh, I thought you-
Discussion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion adjourned.
All right.